A burning desire
to do something bigger than just to make our daily bread.
We wanted to make a real difference.
It's the story of investing our customers' funds in projects that deliver good returns while ensuring a sustainable future for this country.
So we plan for tomorrow and build these solar fields.
And wind farms with huge turbines.
And tonight,
53,000 more homes
will have warmth and light. It's about communities and how these projects build more than hope.
to better the lives of more than 500,000 school children, because our future depends on having more doctors, engineers, teachers, and entrepreneurs.
We are not just watching the world change. We are changing the world.
That's why I save with,
invest with,
Partner with,
Work at Old Mutual.
There we go. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be in Durban again. Well, most parts of Durban. I hail from Johannesburg, and you can spot the people from Johannesburg outside. They're all the people avoiding the sunroll stand, by virtue of the fact that if they have facial recognition software, we all have a very, very serious problem. For the last 20 years or so of my life, I've been working with entrepreneurs and small businesses to help them manage the financial risks that they face in terms of bridging the uncertainties to build the businesses that they ultimately want to build. And one of the things I found in working with small businesses is that financially, there's no more rewarding place to be if you get it right. But the price we pay for that is to get it right as a small business. We face greater risks than, without any doubt, any other profession out there. And the statistics support this. The statistics bear this out. Statistically, 85% of small businesses fail in their first year. In the first 5 years, 70 to 80% of small businesses still fail. So as an entrepreneur, as a small businessman, one of the questions we have to continue asking ourselves is, what are the risks that I face on a daily basis? And what are the things that I can do to protect myself against that risk? I mean, certainly in my experience, I've worked with a great many people that have worked beyond belief to build a successful business only to lose it again. And in my experience, one of the main reasons why that happens is because as entrepreneurs, we fail to evolve our thinking as our businesses evolve. I mean, for the first 2 years or so that a business takes to start breaking even, to start making money, one of the things you probably experience intimately on a day-to-day basis is that to make a small business work, it takes everything you've got. You know, you pour your heart, your soul, your energy, your focus, and very specifically, all the money that you've got into this thing to make it work. And even then, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be successful. The one thing we do know is if you don't pour everything into your business, it probably does guarantee that you won't be. So as we go upon this journey, as we start building our businesses, what are the things that we should be doing and thinking about? Well, firstly, once we get to a point where we start making money. You know, after 2 years or so, we're at a point where we're so used to plowing everything back into our businesses that we just keep doing that indefinitely. Firstly, because of force of habit, and secondly, once a business turns the corner and starts making money, it's a really great place to be. And it's really tough to consider putting your money anywhere else. I had this experience, boy, this is where I really start sounding like an old fart. 17 years ago, when the IT bubble was still happening, sort of all these businesses were booming all over the place, and I was consulting for a major accountancy firm at the time. And I was sitting with the directors of a business called Deventer, and this business had just exploded overnight and became the largest listed business in South Africa. So I was speaking to people that had started off by investing 50 or 100,000 Rand as a partner in a business. And 5 or 6 years later, they were worth 50 million Rand, 150, 200 million Rand. And it was a very interesting conversation chatting to these guys, because when they thought about where they wanted to put the money that they started making, for them it was a no-brainer. I'm just going to pump it back into my business. Data shares at the time were trading at about 75 Rand a share. And I know a number of these guys, what happens when we start making money? You buy the Maserati, you buy the Lamborghini, you buy the expensive spouse, sort of all the bling and the other things that go along with that. And that's great when your business is still doing well. But what subsequently happened, in less than a year, the share price fell from 75 Rand to 7 Rand 50 to 3 Rand 75. Yeah, the guy that had bought the 30 million rand home in Belito or Zimbabwe and drove the Lamborghini and had the expensive wife or the expensive husband, now suddenly we're in a position where they were stuck up a creek without a paddle. So the one thing we learned from this is, as you start turning the corner as a business, as you start making money, yes, it is important to start plowing or to keep plowing some of the money back into the business, but at some stage, you need to start building a strategy for keeping your money, hanging on to your wealth, to divorce your financial risk from your business. So how do we do that? The most successful investor the world has ever seen is a guy called Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett at one stage wrote the following. He said, creating wealth over a lifetime does not require a stratospheric IQ, unusual business insights or inside information. What's needed is a sound intellectual framework for making decisions and the ability to keep our emotions from corroding that framework. As things start happening in our business, it becomes incredibly important to have an idea about what goes where and what the rules and considerations are that apply. So what we found in working with entrepreneurs over the years is, in the life of an entrepreneur, of a small business owner, essentially there are three different pools of stuff, three different types of assets. And the rules and the considerations, the things you need to be thinking about are very important, but quite different inside of each one of those. The first asset that we think of is obviously your business asset, because that's what's most important to you. If you're ever going to get rich, if you're ever going to create wealth, nobody else is going to make you rich or invest you rich. It's going to happen from the business that you build. The thing to remember about business assets, though, is that these assets tend to be of a high risk, high reward nature, because they rely so heavily on you and what you do, and those are things you can control, and the environment inside of which you do it. And often those are the things that you can't control. So as far as these assets go, we know that there's a whole bunch of risks that go along with them. But one of the key things that we need to do as business owners is we need to make sure that we protect ourselves against those risks as far as possible. And in that case, very often there's stuff that we can do that becomes very, very beneficial. So what are the things we should be thinking about in that context? Well, for me, when I think about business assets, it's a little bit like thinking about a water tank. You guys with all the rain in KZN probably don't know what this is or need one. In Cape Town, everybody has one. So for them, this is a much more personal analogy. So if you look at your business as a water tank, the water that you fill the tank with is the money that you start building in your business, the capital that you start accumulating. And the idea is to accumulate enough money to fill your tank with enough water so that you're able to survive the financial challenges and disasters that come along. But if you're a young business, you're not close to having enough water in your tank yet. And that's where two things become incredibly important. Firstly, it becomes important to secure your inflows as much as possible. Make sure we get as much money into our business as we can. And we're going to talk about that in a few seconds. And the second thing is, make sure that you limit your outflows. Make sure that you're not spending more money inside of your business than you absolutely should be. So how do we do that? And how can people support you as an entrepreneur in terms of doing that? Well, firstly, when it comes to securing your business inflows, there are three areas that we found one is able to deal with a great many of the risks you face in that regard. The first is to make sure that you've got enough funding to carry you through those first 2-3 years when you face your greatest financial risk. Everybody always wants more money. Yeah, and as an entrepreneur and as a business owner, somebody that's owned a number of businesses myself, one thing that we need to do is make sure that we check everywhere we can to ensure that we've got enough funding to keep our business afloat in those first few years. In Old Mutual, we've got a business called Masazizani. They're at the Old Mutual stand in the back, and guys wearing black shirts, and I'll be answering some questions afterwards. And one of the things that we do is we work with entrepreneurs where there's a sound business plan, a sound prospect. We're very happy to look at helping to fund that business to get it to a point of profitability. So from a funding perspective, if you're not quite where you want to be, please come have a chat to us at the Old Mutual stand afterwards, or the lady from Masazizani coming up, give her a really tough time and ask her a bunch of questions. The second area that's quite important is how you deal with your debtors. My wife ran a small corporate catering business for 7 or 8 years. And it started going really well, but one of the challenges she faced was she had a whole bunch of debtors that didn't pay her. So you deliver your product, you deliver your service, you issue your invoice, and the money just doesn't come in. I see a couple of guys in the audience going, it's absolutely, how much does that suck? I mean, it's absolutely horrible when that happens, but that's a reality. And one of the things we don't appreciate is it is possible to get a form of guarantee of payment by partnering with an insurer. In Old Mutual, we've got a credit guarantee side of the business, and what they'll do is they'll sit down with you, look at your debtors book, and provide payments for those debtors if they fail to pay, meeting certain conditions. So if that is a problem or risk in your business, non-payment of invoices being issued, there are people that can help you secure that income stream and make sure that the money comes in. And it's certainly an important thing to think about. And the third thing that we want to think about, especially if it's just you heading up the business, or you're the head of a fairly small business, is the risk of disability. If something should happen to you or your ability to perform your job or your function inside of your business essentially dies overnight. So having a form of insurance or cover in that can step in and fill that water tank on your behalf, if you no longer have the ability to do that, is quite important. And by the way, as the value of your business grows, what you need to do in that regard becomes quite different as well. So let's move across to limiting your outflows. I know most small businesses aren't cash flush. You don't have massive cash reserves. And if there are one or two things that can sink you overnight, it's unforeseen disasters. Having your delivery truck stolen, having inventory stolen, an unforeseen fire in the factory or your manufacturing facility. So short-term insurance from a business perspective, also an incredibly important thing to look at. And it's a little bit different from personal insurance. There are weird and wonderful things that guys can do. So you want to make sure that in case disaster hits your business, you'll be able to absorb that financially. And then finally, there's the whole issue of partners and partner life cover. And it sounds like a depressing thing, but if you're in a small business and you've got one or two key partners, between the two of you or the three of you, you probably own the business outright. So if you've got two partners in a business and the one partner owns half and you own half, the problem is if that partner passes away, what happens to their share in the business? Well, typically the share in the business goes to their spouse or goes to their family. It's great for the spouse. Well, not really, because when that happens, one of two things happen. Either the spouse decides they're Donald Trump, and this is their one great opportunity to start managing a business, and they may have very different ideas from you in terms of managing that business. Or secondly, and much more commonly, the spouse decides, well, they just want the money. They don't want share in a business. So they'll go out and try and sell that shareholding in the business to whoever's prepared to pay most for it. And that potentially is a disastrous thing for a business. So by ensuring the life of your partner in the business and having an underlying agreement that ensures that you get paid out so you can buy the share if bad things happen, is a very important mechanism when it comes to dealing with that dynamic. And if it's something that you are thinking about or that might be an issue, again, in the back, please come speak to the Old Mutual stand. We have got personal financial analysts that will look at your business and understand what those needs are and what the things are we want to think about. Okay, so those are business assets. These are the risks that we can manage. And if all of them aren't covered yet, and even if they are covered, it just makes sense to review them every now and again. Okay, so business assets done. The second group of assets I tend to think about as well, what I think of as lifestyle assets. Earlier on, I spoke about the fact that as soon as our business starts pumping, starts doing well, what do? Our lifestyle tends to increase. The Zimbabwe house happens. The nice car happens. The better BMW happens. It's human nature. That's what we tend to do. You may buy a golden Rolex, but please never buy a golden Rolex. It's just not cool. But regardless, and if you do have a golden Rolex, I wasn't talking about you. Anyway, so the thing with lifestyle assets is these assets aren't investments. They're the things that we live with. Don't incur any debt there. And the critically important thing about lifestyle assets, and this is where most entrepreneurs go wrong, is because they're suddenly making a lot of money, they suddenly start spending a lot of money. Make sure the money that you're spending is sustainable over time and that you spend your money on the right stuff. So what does that mean? Well, I'll demonstrate this by virtue of an experiment the University of Liège did a while ago. So at the University of Liège in Belgium, they did an experiment where they set up a small little room, very clinical, no windows, solid walls all around, a stainless steel table, and they asked people, they had a couple of hundred people come in, and they asked them 2 questions. The first question, they put a chocolate bar on the table. And they asked people, okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, how happy would this chocolate bar make you? And being Belgians, they love chocolate, they like me, so the chocolate scored pretty well. 8 out of 10, the chocolate is pretty great. And what they then did is they took the chocolate bar off the table and they rolled a trolley into the room. And on the trolley, they had €1 million in cash. So that's about 15 million rands or so. It's a lot of money. I mean, that's as much, it takes Jacob Zuma 4 or 5 hours to earn that much money. Anyway, so 15 million rands in cash. And people could pick up this money, they could sort of smell it, they could, I don't know, what do you do with that much money? Look at it and sort of listen to the beautiful money. Sadly, eventually they had to give the money back. So, they put the money back on the trolley, they moved the trolley out of the room, and they then proceeded to ask people the second question. And the second question was this. They took the same chocolate bar, put it on the table, and asked people on a scale of 0 to 10, how happy would this chocolate bar make you? What do you think happened? Suddenly the chocolate bar was scoring like 2 or 3 out of 10. So what that showed is getting stuff does make us happy. Buying stuff does make us happy. But how happy that stuff makes us is a function of what else we could be having. So as a business owner, eventually you've got an okay car, you've got an okay home, but the more money you earn, the nicer the stuff is that you could be having, and as a consequence, the more miserable the stuff makes you that you have got. And in order to maintain a sense of happiness, we have to keep buying and buying and buying, and that's not really going to get you anywhere. Research has shown that the 3 things that make us happiest are the following: meaningful relationships, rewarding experiences, and a sense of purpose. And those are the things that you should be spending your money on, and they're much cheaper. So once your business starts turning the corner, in order to avoid financial disaster, one of the most important things you can do is to sit down with your loved ones, if it comes to that, over a glass of wine, and talk about the stuff that really makes you happen, or that really makes you happy, and focus on that. And by the way, if you take those 3 lessons, the same applies to building a business and building a happy business with high staff retention. Meaningful relationships, rewarding experiences, sense of purpose. If you can give your employees that, and financial security, I'll talk about that in a second, that's how you make them stick around. And not only does it make your workplace a happier place, it also means that it saves you a great deal of money of hiring and retraining staff every few months. So that's as far as lifestyle assets are concerned. The third type of asset that I think about is what I think of as your wealth preservation assets. This is a pool of money that once I've got enough over there, I will be able to continue living the life I want to live, no matter what happens to my business. And if I want to become financially independent from my business at some stage, I have to understand how much of the income I'm generating do I need to channel towards my wealth preservation assets, for how long, so that I have enough here to no longer need to worry about my business. And that gives you financial freedom. And by the way, not only does it apply to you as a business owner, that also applies to the employees that you've got. Giving your employees a financial plan, financial security, corporate benefits that allows them to feel like they're being looked after from an insurance perspective, from a retirement perspective, that is one of the strongest glues you can use to stick people to a successful business. There is just one observation when it comes to building an investment strategy outside of your business when you start doing that. It's something that in behavioral finance is referred to as distractive risk. Before I tell you what it is, I'll show you a picture that I think demonstrates it fairly well. So distractive risk is about a very simple thing. You go where you look. And the problem with so many entrepreneurs and businessmen is as we start becoming successful and we see so much growth in our business, if you've got a successful wealth strategy and investment strategy to become financially independent, to strip the risk away from your business outside of that, those investments will never grow as successfully as your business is growing. And because we're only human, what we keep doing is we keep thinking, well, if I put my money back in my business, I can make so much more. I'll have so much more money so much sooner. And that distraction very often can become disastrous. So tempting as it might be, once you've got a strategy in place to go back to the good old days where everything is just being plowed back, that is one of the most disastrous decisions that we can make. So I think in summary, as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, if I am going to give myself the best possible chance of dealing with the financial risks in my business over the coming years, I believe there are three things that one should do. Firstly, know what those business risks are that you can protect yourself against, and make sure you do that. I mean, that's a no-brainer. We spoke about what some of those are. Secondly, have a get-rich plan. That's about the business, and have a stay-rich plan. And understand that those are two different things. And if you're not sure how to channel your money into the one and into the other, we've got some superb personal financial advisors at the Old Mutual stable that can help you, at the Old Mutual table, that can help you look at that and test whether you're on the right track. And thirdly, you don't have to do this thing alone, whether it be Old Mutual or anybody else. The bottom line is, no business can grow successfully in isolation. Growing a great business is about great partnerships. It's about working with the right people that keep you on track and help you do the right stuff all of the time. So before I call the team up for a couple of questions, I usually like to end a talk with a quote by a famous person. And I think all of you would agree that when it comes to famous people, there's no one more famous than Batman. And in the movie The Dark Knight, Batman at one stage said the following. He said, "It's not who we are underneath, but what we do that defines us." As a business owner, as an entrepreneur, we know the things that we could be doing and that we should be doing. And we want to do the right thing. But knowing what to do is not going to make any difference at all. What's going to make a difference is doing something about it. And that starts with asking the right questions and having the right conversations. Thank you very much.